Good evening and thank you for joining us. Demolition began today on the Finnish Labour Temple following December's fire that ripped through the iconic structure. The property owner says it will take up to 3 years to construct a larger building on the site at a cost of nearly $25 million. Corey Nordstrom has more.
The scorched exterior of the Finnish Labour Temple is now no longer the view from Bay Street. The iconic building has been demolished 2 months after the blaze that gutted the majority of the 110-year-old structure. Property owner Brad McKinnon is well aware of the significance of the building, but knows this will lead to better days ahead.
For the building to today be finally torn down is it's upsetting, but it's necessary. We understand that that's necessary. It's something that we have to do to move forward, and it's the next step in a long journey to rebuild the Finnish Labour Temple.
And a long journey it will be. McKinnon's condos were just months away from being available to the public. Now it will take upwards of 3 years for the building to welcome occupants and between $18 and $25 million. He adds that when all is said and done, the original footprint will be nearly tripled on the 27,000 square footage of the former Finlandia building.
When the Labour Temple is taken down, Kivila Bakery is taken down, there'll be 2 new structures that will take their place, and the total square footage will probably be somewhere in the neighborhood of around 80,000 square feet.
McKinnon is promising that the front face of the new building will look similar to the old Labour Temple. He says the Hoito restaurant will be a part of the new build, though no longer in the basement, moving to the main floor of the new building. And while the rubble is being cleaned up, McKinnon and the demolition crews will be on the lookout for a century-old time capsule believed to be placed in the foundation.
Possibly near the footings, and possibly in the corner-facing Bay and Algoma. So we're going to be very careful once we get to that point in taking the foundation walls down, and we'll be looking for this. Apparently it's a copper vessel that this time capsule is in.
Corey Nordstrom, TBT News.
Tough to see that building go. Thunder Bay City Council has voted to suspend Councillor Aldo Roberto for 5 days without pay. It happened at last night's meeting following an Integrity Commissioner's report into comments Roberto made online during an ongoing police investigation back in October. Council was divided on the matter, however, leading to a close 6-4 vote. Vasilios Bellos reports.
The debate about Aldo Roberto dominated the proceedings, and the decision results in docking 5 days' pay for the councillor. Thunder Bay's Integrity Commissioner determined that a Facebook post violated the council code of conduct. Roberto had suggested there may be an innocent explanation to the truck that drove through a tent at a homeless encampment. The report concluded that elected officials should not be commenting on ongoing criminal investigations. Mayor Bill Mauro was the first to speak on the matter at Monday's meeting, believing the commissioner's findings to be a bit of a stretch.
Respectfully to the IC, I don't know how that conclusion can be drawn. I would further provide my own opinion that any comment should be avoided, that making this comment, maybe you could make the recommendation that it wasn't appropriate, but to conclude that somehow it's potentially influencing a criminal investigation, I just can't get there.
Others echoed the mayor's thoughts, believing there was nothing malicious about Roberto's post. But on the other side of the debate was Councillor Brian Hamilton. Although he stressed his support for Roberto as a politician and a person, he believed it needed to be pointed out this was not the first time the councillor has caused a stir on social media.
And the reason why we're here too is the councillor hasn't learned. There hasn't been any learning moments. Like the IC has said that there's already been complaints brought forward. They haven't been heeded, and the IC has even said all we want to do is a bit of a course correction. This isn't a criminal investigation. This is principles. This is guiding principles of governance.
Just before the vote, Councillor Roberto shared his side of the story, strongly standing by his actions and rejecting the report's findings. He also stated his belief that the integrity probe itself was launched without merit.
No racism, no conflict of interest, no sexist remarks, no stealing, no violence. It was the result of something so small and insignificant as a Facebook post of hope. This happened to me, it can happen to you. We're all on trial tonight. What is our society becoming when we as politicians cannot express our hopes without being raked over the coals.
The second recommendation from the Integrity Commission was also passed, meaning the city will look at developing social media policies for councillors. As it was pointed out in the meeting, this will be increasingly important as you see younger council members elected in the future, who are more likely to be using these platforms. Vasilios Bellos, TBT News.
Also last night, Council ratified the 2022 city budget. The tax levy increase was approved at 2.36% after growth. That's slightly higher than the original 2.25% target. Councillors Peng Yu and Rebecca Johnson voted against ratification, citing that increase over the targeted amount. Some of the big spending increases will be seen in EMS and police services. There's $2.4 million for preliminary work for the proposed new police headquarters. Also approved last night, a $1.1 million consulting contract for KGS Group to oversee the Victoriaville demolition and revitalization project. Manager of Realty Services Joel DePuter explained what that contract entails.
Includes the design of the improvements that would be needed to the or for the city-owned buildings and some of the private buildings, privately owned buildings. That includes architectural theming. There is the public consultation piece that goes with the design.
And more news out of City Hall. Red River Ward Councillor Brian McKinnon has announced he's taken a leave of absence for personal reasons. McKinnon is asking for understanding and privacy at this time, and he hopes to return to his council duties in March. The Thunder Bay D.S.A.B has declined an invitation from City Council to talk about drug trafficking and other issues at the social housing complexes it manages. Councillors voted in November to invite the agency to attend one of their meetings to discuss security concerns after a murder and several other violent incidents at Spence Court. The Westfort complex was originally reserved for seniors housing, but the D.S.A.B opened it up to all tenants in recent years. Chair Lucy Kloosterhuis says the organization has a good system in place already, with more than 900 security cameras around the city. She adds City Manager Norm Gale and D.S.A.B head Bill Bradica already talk frequently as it is.
If we were to go to the City of Thunder Bay Council meeting and sit through a question period with whatever questions they may come to us with other than security, then we also have 14 other municipalities that deserve that same attention. We cannot start to go to every municipality and sit at their council meeting and address all these questions.
Kloosterhuis says what Thunder Bay really needs is more transitional housing for those dealing with addiction, as there simply aren't enough in the city right now. Drivers in Northern Ontario would save $60 a year, and those in the South $120 if they didn't have to pay for a license plate sticker. That idea is now being considered by the Ford government just in time for a provincial election. But as Colin DeMello tells us, that populist idea could cost the province $1 billion a year in revenue.
For drivers in Ontario, getting a new license plate sticker has long been a source of annoyance.
Every year you have to remember to get rid of it, or every 2 years, and it's getting more expensive every time. They always raise it every year.
CTV News has learned the Ford government is making a major pre-election promise that drivers will no longer have to pay the $120 fee to renew their license plates.
You know, we're constantly looking at ways to make life more affordable for people, and that means looking at a range of options.
But eliminating the sticker fee could come with an enormous cost. Ontario's Financial Accountability Officer estimates it would mean Queen's Park would have to forego $1 billion in revenue at a time when the government is facing a multi-billion-dollar deficit.
We don't know if that's something that's all going to be done 1 year, if that's going to be something that's spread over 10 years or whatever the case is.
Even drivers have their concerns.
Put the money towards where it should, somewhere else. $1 billion, like give it to the shelters, the homeless people that need it.
The measure comes just 16 weeks before the next provincial election. And sources say the populist pledge would be designed to appeal to drivers in the 905, a region that's seen as key to forming government. Even the opposition wouldn't criticize or applaud the government.
But certainly I'll have a look at it. Again, I think that we have a province that's extremely unaffordable right now.
And some voters are paying attention to the timing.
I think it's a pretty obvious ploy with the elections coming up that they're trying to get votes, just like with the buck of beer. He always complains, Lecce complains, there's no money for education, there's no money for health care, there's no money for this and that, but they're going to throw away $1 billion and not make up for it.
It is on brand, however, for a populist premier who promised to save taxpayers' money.
That was CTV's Colin DeMello. COVID-19 numbers at the Thunder Bay Regional Health Sciences Centre are unchanged since yesterday. There are still 45 COVID patients in hospital with 8 in intensive care. Overall occupancy has risen to 101%, while ICU occupancy has fallen to 86%. On the vaccine front, about 4,200 shots were administered last week across the Thunder Bay District Health Unit catchment area. That's down from 6,800 the week before. More than 2,700 of last week's vaccinations were third doses. Nearly 89% of those 5 and older have received at least 1 shot, and almost 84% have gotten at least 2 doses. The Northwestern Health Unit is sounding the alarm over a steep rise in syphilis cases in its catchment area. Cases of the sexually transmitted infection increased by 107% from 2020 to 2021, continuing an upward trend since 2018. The typical incidence rate prior to 2018 was 2.9 cases per 100,000 people, but that number jumped to 70 in 2020 and then more than doubled to 145 last year. 46% of the cases last year were in Sioux Lookout, 36% were in Kenora, and 9% were in Fort Francis. Medical Officer of Health Dr. Kit Young-Hoon addressed the issue at her weekly news conference and spoke about where she thinks the increase stems from.
Perhaps individuals may not have sought treatment and may not be as engaged in, following, using condoms and other forms of protecting themselves during this time. So perhaps, maybe it could be other things such as lack of access to treatment, lack of access to testing. Perhaps that could have all exacerbated the increase that is being seen.
As for the COVID situation, the N.W.H.U's 21.8% positivity rate continues to be much higher than many other places in Ontario. But on the plus side, Young-Hoon notes the vaccination rate of 62% for 5 to 11-year-olds is 8 percentage points higher than the provincial rate. And this will be the final week for large-scale vaccination clinics across the N.W.H.U. Lakehead University is celebrating Black History Month throughout February by hosting a number of virtual and interactive events. The school held an opening ceremony online today. Lakehead's new Chancellor, Rita Shelton-Deverell, provided opening remarks to kick off the festivities.
Where we need to be is listening with respect to everybody's stories. And they are different stories. They're different sides of the same story. We don't have to tell them they're wrong. It's their story. And I wish you a wonderful, informative Black History Month.
This year, the national theme is February and Forever, celebrating Black History Month today and every day. Along with LU officials, several guest speakers from the Office of Human Rights and Equity were involved in today's ceremony and have also organized some of the school's upcoming events. Lakehead's Black History Month website has details about all the virtual information sessions and panel discussions. Spots are also still available to sign up for a variety of game nights and other activities. A new arcade-themed bar will soon be open inside a historic Thunder Bay building. The Tilted Turret is located in the famous Coup House on Archibald Street. Mitchell Ringos recently paid a visit.
If you've ever been to an arcade, you've definitely tried a pinball machine and can soon try many more in the new Tilted Turret bar, set up in the Coup House Heritage Building. The iconic structure was built in 1898 and has had many different owners over the years. The new co-owner, Andrew Young, says the building came up for sale in the fall, and they knew they had to take a chance, especially with a building with so much history.
And anyone that grew up in Thunder Bay would really know the building, and especially its time as a Christmas store. And it was really exciting to have that opportunity, and now to hopefully continue on that tradition of it being a special part of the community.
The new bar will have a maximum capacity of around 30 people throughout the two-story building and will have 9 pinball machines from old school to the newest games on the market. Young says everyone they have talked to has been very supportive of their unique idea, and arcade-style bars in bigger cities have proven to be a huge hit with the community.
Who wouldn't want to go play some pinball, drink some beer, and eat some nachos at the same time? I think it'll be a lot of fun, and the atmosphere here is second to none. The prior business really did a phenomenal job on the renovations. And
Young says in the future, depending on how well the business does, more pinball machines could be added to the already stacked fleet of games.
If they want more machines, they want more diversity, Pac-Man or something like that, we'd certainly be open to expanding in that regard. Just whatever the demand is, we'll be happy to fulfill that.
If you're looking to check out the new arcade-style bar and fight for the high score in a variety of pinball machines, Tilted Turret is hoping to open on February 18th. Mitchell Ringos, TBT News.
Well, if you missed any of today's local stories or you'd like to watch them again, you can find them on tbnewswatch.com in the TBT News Stories section. You can also follow us on social media. Facebook users can find TBT News at TBT News TBay, and on Twitter, we can be found at TBT News _TBay.